Hello, today we are going to change the muffler on your scooter, and in this video I will show you how. Hello, today we are going to change the muffler for your scooter. Okay, this part right here is about 16 inches long and 5 inches wide. This one is an original muffler for a GY6 150cc scooter. Now this part right here, they break or they start to rattle more or less when you have about 5,000 miles or more with your scooter, because they get rust inside, and this part right here, those are the rivets, they start to break, you know, about 3,000, 4,000 miles. So this one's gonna start to vibrate, you know. The only thing you can do to save this thing and have the old muffler for a little longer, you can put a little clamp like right here to hold, you know, the two sides to your scooter or to the main part of the exhaust muffler. Okay, now this part right here, that is the part right here that goes to your motor, that will last a lot longer, about 15,000 miles, if you keep the scooter nice and covered and out of the rain. But this part right here, that's the muffler, will last about 6,000 miles, not too long. But the price are okay. Price is about $45 to change this one. And to change this one is really easy, and I will show you how to do it right now. Okay, to replace your muffler is a really easy thing to do. The only thing you have to make sure that your scooter is on a center stand, so it's not moving around when you're working with your muffler. After that, make sure, if you want to work with a muffler, make sure it's cold. That's really important because you don't want to burn your hands. After that, you have two bolts right here. Two bolts, they are 40 millimeter, and you have three bolts at the end, and those are 12 millimeter. Now, the first thing you're gonna lose is the bolt there down here at the beginning of the muffler, because you don't want to place pressure later to this bolt right here, and you might break the front part of your muffler, you know, the head part of the muffler. So at the beginning, just lose a little bit right here, the front part of the muffler with the 12 millimeter sockets. Lose those ones right here a little bit, and then later you're going to lose the 40 millimeter over here. So the process is really easy to do it, okay? So make sure that the old muffler is gonna be cold. Now, if you order the muffler online and you don't have the muffler here to change it yet, you can use a clamp like that, you know, that is 6 inches wide, and you can place it over here to hold the muffler until you have the new muffler coming in, okay? So this one can help you for a little bit, you know. You just place it right here and you tie it pretty good, one over here on the end and one on the front. Because the problem right here, you have the rivets, you know, those screws that are here, they kind of get loose a little bit, they break apart after a while, you know. This product is not really the best, but this is the only product that works around 6,000 miles with this type of scooters, okay? Now, we're gonna change this part. The only thing you're gonna need is 12 millimeter socket over there and 14 millimeter socket right here. But make sure everything is nice and cold when you do this job. So let's start to do the job right now. Okay, we're gonna start to remove these bolts right here, the 1, 2, and 3, okay? Now, right here you have a 12 millimeter socket. 12 millimeter socket, so if you want to tap these bolts, okay? Well, sometimes there's a little bit of rust inside. You can tap it with the little hammer, or you can tap with the back side of this wrench, okay? Because sometimes rust is in there. If you have a little rust in there, this one they're not going to turn freely. Now, if you wanna prepare this one the night before, you can spray a little WD-40, something that penetrates inside here, or silicone, or there is some specific spray that you can spray over here, and this part right here will get a little more loose, a little more, you know, a little more lubrication. So at that point will come out a lot better, those bolts. But usually they're pretty good, this bolt, and strangely they're good quality bolt. So what you're gonna do, you just take the 12 millimeter socket, you place it right here, and you start to turn left, okay? Now make sure you have the feeling of the bolt that is coming out, because if you feel the mix kind of like a resistance, be gentle, don't break the bolt, okay, because you might have a problem. You might have to get the grinder and cut this bolt, so you don't want to do that, you know, it's more work. So at this point, start to work one at a time, okay? So you go a little bit of the time in one side, a little bit of the time on the other side. So in a rotation way, try to unscrew these bolts, okay? Now don't unscrew them all the way, but almost at the end. Almost at the end, okay? Little bit at a time, be gentle, because we are talking about these scooters that they really don't have the best quality in town, but they're okay, they work for a long time, about 15,000 miles, 20,000 miles. That's a perfect time for these scooters to work with you, you know, bring you around. Now, at this point, when you almost lost all the screws, or all the bolts, you almost lose them all the way, leave them a little bit. At this point, we're going to go right here, underneath here, that we have two bolts that are 14 millimeter, okay? Make sure your wrench and the socket, you turn left, not right, okay? Now, unscrew the one on the top a little bit, and then unscrew the one on the bottom. Just a little bit at a time, okay? This is a really easy job to do. Very easy job to do. The only thing you have to make sure that your muffler is cold. Now, if you have time, when you change the muffler, you should change this part through, the bracket. So this rubber right here is new, okay? Because this rubber right here, you have to change at least 3 or 4 times in the life of your scooter. Because this rubber right here that hold the muffler will become dry, will become burn, and at one point it start to break apart. So if you place a new muffler, place new brackets and new rubber right here, that will help your scooter to be more stable, you know? Because this one, also this rubber part right here, help with vibration. Now remove one bracket at a time, okay? Because it's always better. You want something that holds your muffler all the way. And plus, with your hands, try to hold the muffler up, okay? Now, at one point, start to unscrew right here the bolt with your hand, because it's always better. You have a better feeling. Now, at this point right here, what you're going to do, you're going to remove the bolt, and do not open this bracket. Do not open, because these brackets right here, they don't have great memory. They don't come back where they was before. So just get this bracket from the back or from the front, where you have more space to get them out, okay? So just slide them, okay? Right here, we're going to slide them back. Now try to slide the one in the back or the one in the front, one at a time, okay? Not both at the same time. Now, after you're done with one, you go with the other one, and you keep unscrewing the bolt. Little bit at a time, the bolt will come out. Make sure you don't damage the threading or the bolt, okay? Because it's very important. Okay, now when you're done, you can go forward with the one that is over here, and you cut past this one from the front. Now make sure all the time that this part right here is nice and cold before you work on it. Now by holding the back part with your hand, you're holding the muffler a little bit. You can unscrew by hand the bolt that you have up front, or you can use the wrench with a socket to unscrew the front part. Okay, right after that you remove this muffler, you can check it. Okay, see the damage that this one gets, a little rusty over here, but the problem is this one. See all these screws, the rivets, they get damaged on your scooter, and your scooter start to vibrate, and this part right here breaks. So that's the problem with these mufflers right here. They're not a bad design, but they could just slightly make it a little bit better, and they will last a lot longer. Okay, so that's one part that you should change on your scooter every 6,000 to 7,000 miles. Now to replace it is really easy. Just few bolts and you can replace it. Right after you remove the muffler, make sure you clean this area right here with a wire brush or some sandpaper. Okay, you want to make sure this area is nice and clean. Now, right here, make sure you don't move it too much. You know, don't shake it too much, because you might break the studs there at the front of the motor. So, clean it gently. You can hold it with the hand, and you can make it nice and clean. Okay, you want to make sure that it doesn't move too much. Now, right after you're done with this one, you make it nice and clean. You're going to remove from the new muffler the gasket right here. This gasket right here has to go in this part right here. Okay, now to remove it, just remove the bolt of the new muffler. And these ones are 10 millimeter instead of be 12 like the other one. They're 10 millimeter, but at least these ones, they're new. Okay, so they're not too rusty, they're brand new bolts. Okay, now remove them, and then we're gonna place the gasket in the same position where we had the old one before. Now when you remove the gasket, make sure that this gasket is not broken, because if you know, you can always buy a new one, or you can use the old one. Okay, now because these gaskets are dry, and when you squeeze them you can break them, you need to make them slightly softer, and you need to put them in the way that they're going to stick to your position right here in front of the muffler. Now to do that, there is a little trick that you can take a little bit of grease right here, a little bit of grease, and you can place it right here on the gasket. Okay, just a little bit, not too much, you know, like spreading something good, like a Nutella we call in Italy. Okay, you spread a little bit, and then you place this one right here, but put a little bit of the grease over here too, so it will not break, and it will slightly will become softer. Because when you place this gasket, doesn't mean that this front part right here is even. So if it's not even and you tighten the muffler, at that point there is a possibility that you're gonna break the gasket. So this one will make that part or the gasket slightly softer. Okay, plus with the grease, this part right here is going to stay there. It's not going to go anywhere. Now at this point we can start to place the muffler in its location. Now make sure that these holes right here, they are matching the holes over there where you need to place the bolt. Okay, now make sure that this one goes there, and put yourself in a way that you're going to look at the holes to make sure they are looking good. Now take one of the bolts and pass it through and start to screw it in. Okay, take the socket and you can start to screw this one in. Now just a little bit, only one. Okay, now look like it's going in pretty good, but what I want you to do, I want you to buy a little bit of with this one is the thread lock, okay? This one is the red color. This one will take care of the bolt for the vibration, to make sure you're not going to lose your bolt when you're riding your scooter. Now the red one is really for the high temperature. So this one, B, for the high temperature, is great for the muffler bolt, okay? Now you just need to put a little drop at the bolt right here, just a little bit, and you can place it inside, okay? Now you want to make sure that you are matching the holes of the muffler, okay? Now you want to make sure you tie this muffler pretty good, but not too much. You don't want to break the bolt. Don't worry. This right here, they have a little flange and they will not go inside. Now in the same time, at this point, when you tied a little bit the other one, you can put a little touch of this red thread lock right here at the top bolt, okay? Now, tie a little bit at a time all these bolts, okay? And make sure you press the muffler that way, okay? Every time you tie this one, because you want to make sure that this muffler is tight, okay? Now make sure you don't put some pressure down. If you put pressure down on the muffler when you're tightening it, you could break the studs underneath the motor, so you don't want to do that. Now at this point you can push with your leg a little bit, pushing the muffler inside. Now when you get two of the bolts in, you can put the third one, okay? Now make sure you put a little bit of thread lock right here. So this one you can spread a little bit to make sure it's going to be nice and spread all around the little thread lock, and you can put it inside there. Now because down here you don't see much, you can lay down on the floor and see if the screw is going in the right way. Make sure when you tie these bolts you are holding to the muffler too, because if you're not holding to the muffler could go to the sideways, and you don't want the muffler to go sideways, okay? Gently and take your time, no rush. You do this work, okay? Now every work sound and look so easy all the time, but if you don't do it right, you could have a problem, okay? So you could break a bolt, you could break a muffler, you can break the brackets, you can break things around if you don't do things right. Many times jobs that takes 5 minutes, they end up to turning in jobs that they're like 5-hour job, because you broke a bolt, okay? Or you broke something. So make sure you do the right way and you work the right way with the right tools if you can to do the right job. And plus, have that feeling of the muffler or these bolts going in the right way. Now, tie them pretty good, but at the same time, don't tie it too much. And you also have the thread lock inside that's gonna help the screw to don't vibrate and don't leave you, from the scooter. Okay, so that's really something. After that, we're gonna want to put the brackets. After you're done with these 3 bolts right here, we're going to put the muffler. Now make sure that when you place this bolt, the back part of the muffler is gonna look down. Make sure it's not gonna look up, because if not, the rain is gonna go inside the muffler. Okay, make sure before you tighten anything, it's going to look good. Okay, this time we're gonna replace the brackets. I don't have the full brackets right here, brand new, but I have the rubber that goes around. The rubber is really important, because look, this rubber right here, after a while, it becomes really hard and start to break apart. so it's no good anymore. So this one is kind of like the suspension of your muffler. When it vibrates, this part right here really make a suspension, or it really helps the muffler to vibrate less and don't break. Okay, so this part right here you can buy on Amazon. I can put the link down here, or you can buy the old brackets on Amazon. They're not too expensive, about like $20, something like that. So it's pretty a good buy for that. But this part right here is really important. If you don't have this one, sometimes the brackets will break because they don't have a suspension. Okay, so make sure the brackets are nice and clean. If you like, you can clean with a little sandpaper, and you can place them back in position. Now put it back in position. Make sure you don't spread this part right here, this bracket. Do not open, okay? Do not stretch it, because if you stretch it, this one doesn't really have too much memory and will not come back in the right position and will bend. Okay, so this one is something important. Right here I have this rubber part that right here that is really helping the muffler to don't move around, and it's kind of like the suspension of the muffler. Now remember, down here you have the 14mm bolt to place this part right here, that is the bracket. Okay, now at this point what you can do, you can take this part right here, rubber, and you go around and you put it inside. Okay, gently. Okay, and make sure it's even. Okay, make sure it looks, looks good, and it's not too much in one side or too much on the other one. Okay, has to be like that. Now to go in from here, at this point you go from the back part of the bracket right here, and then you're going to have the front bracket on the other side. Make sure you take all this old rubber suspension part of the bracket away, and you place a new one. So your scooter is going to look new, not going to vibrate too much, it's going to feel very good sound. Okay, now right here, make sure you place this one right here. Okay, you don't want to be too much on one side and not too much on the other one, or less on this side, so they have to be even when you place this rubber. Now make sure it looks good, make sure the inside of the bracket is nice and clean. Okay, and what you're gonna do, you're just gonna go from the front and you're going to go in. Okay, make sure to don't get this bracket too wide, and at that point you can place the 240mm bolt underneath. Okay, but in the same time you want to make sure that this bracket and the rubber, they are matching. Okay, you don't want to be left or right, because later you're gonna have a bigger problem. Okay, right here we're going to place the 240mm right here, 40mm bolts underneath here. But first let's place a little bit of the right here thread lock, just a little drop. You're gonna put it inside. Now make sure to don't make too much pressure on the muffler, and make sure that the rubber all around looks good. Now you're gonna push or pull up a little bit of muffler to make sure this one will go in the best way. You don't want to force the bolt, because if you're forcing the bolt, you're going to have a problem. Okay, now take the second one. Now do not screw in this bolt all the way. Okay, the second bolt, you're gonna put a little bit of the thread lock right here. You're gonna put this bolt right here. You're slightly going to raise the muffler, and you're going to put that bolt inside. From the back, raise the muffler, and you're going to place the bolt in its position. Okay? Now, right after you place the bolt in the position, you can start to screw the bolt in with the socket. Okay? But you want to make sure that you don't force the bolt in, because if you're forcing this bolt in, you might damage the threading or the bolt. So you want to make sure you do this right. Very important. You want to make sure and have a feeling that this bolt is going in a nice way. You don't want to force it. If you feel that the bolt is going sideways, come back. Go back with the screw or with the bolt, okay? Now, before you make sure everything looks good, make sure that the rubber part of the bracket, it doesn't go sideways. Sometimes when you tie these brackets, the rubber part goes sideways and it's gonna burn or it's gonna get damaged. So make sure it's perfect, okay? Now, take your time to do this job. If you do the job right, it will last a long time. If you don't do this job right, it will last a little less. So that's what it is. Now, try to make sure before or when you're tightening the bolt that these brackets are not going to go sideways. If they go left or right, you might have a misalignment of the muffler. What a misalignment can do? A misalignment can break the front studs, can break the front flange, can break the muffler, can break the bracket. So many things can happen. Make sure everything is tight and make sure everything looks good. And even before you put your scooter down, make sure these brackets are nice and straight, okay? You don't want them to go right or left. They have to be even, okay? Even to each other, same distance from here, okay? Because if not, they might force. Okay, we just finished to change the muffler on your scooter. I'd like to thank you very much for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you!